She said, "If you're brave enough, stay." I should have known what that meant. Disclaimer: this story is a work of fiction. It contains psychological and emotional themes that may be unsettling for some readers. Viewer discretion is advised. She said, "If you're brave enough, stay." I should have known what that meant. It started with a message, 5 words that pulled me back into a life I thought I'd buried. If you're brave enough, stay. No name. No context. But I knew who it was from. You don't forget a love like Lena, or the pain she left behind. 3 years had passed since I last saw her. We were young when we fell in love, reckless even. Our relationship burned fast and bright, until it collapsed under the weight of things we didn't understand: trauma, distance, secrets. When she left, she didn't say goodbye. Just vanished. Now, out of nowhere, she wanted me to come back. And not just visit. She wanted me to stay. I stared at that message for hours, debating. I should have ignored it. I should have blocked the number. But something inside me, maybe love, maybe unfinished guilt, wouldn't let it go. So, I packed a bag and drove north. The air grew thinner as I wound through mountain roads. The town where we spent that summer together, Halberd Ridge, was smaller than I remembered. The gas station was boarded up. No cell service. The kind of place time forgets. Her cabin sat at the edge of the woods, tucked between mossy pines. It looked almost exactly like it did in my memory, though older somehow, like it had been waiting, not just abandoned, but watching. When I knocked, the door creaked open before my hand made contact. Lena stood there in a pale gray dress, barefoot on the wooden floor. Her hair was longer now, almost reaching her waist. Her face looked the same, but her eyes, they held something I couldn't place. Like she'd seen things you weren't supposed to see. "Evan," she said quietly, like saying my name was both a comfort and a warning. "Hey," I managed. "Got your message." She stepped aside. "Then you already made your choice." Inside, the cabin was dimly lit, warm but somehow empty. The air smelled like cedar, burnt herbs, and something metallic. There were candles on every surface. Books with no titles. Strange symbols scratched into the wooden beams. I asked her how she'd been. She didn't answer. Just watched me with that unreadable expression. Later, as I settled into the guest room, the same one I stayed in all those years ago, I noticed the photos on the wall. Us, from before. But they were different. The colors faded. Our faces slightly distorted. In one of them, my eyes looked wrong. That night, I couldn't sleep. The wind outside whistled like it was whispering something. The cabin creaked with movement, but no one else was awake. I should have left right then. But I'd already made the choice. Morning came slow, draped in a heavy gray fog that blanketed the trees outside the cabin. I woke to the sound of water boiling and the creak of floorboards. For a moment, I forgot where I was, until the weight of the silence reminded me. Lena stood in the kitchen, facing the window. She didn't turn around when I entered. Her hands trembled slightly as she poured tea into 2 mismatched cups. "You still drink black?" she asked, voice low. "Yeah," I said, hesitating before sitting across from her. She finally turned to face me. Her face was soft, calm. But her eyes, something was off. Not in color or shape, but in presence. Like she was there, but some part of her wasn't. Like the soul behind them had gone somewhere else and left her body behind to pretend. We sipped our tea in silence for a while. Then she looked up and said something that set me on edge. "You dreamt last night, didn't you?" I froze. "What?" There were whispers. "And someone standing at the foot of your bed." My cup clinked against the saucer. I hadn't told her about the strange sensation I felt during the night, like something was watching me, breathing near me. "You always had thin walls," I joked, but it came out forced. Lena didn't laugh. She didn't even blink. "There's something here," she said, calmly. "Not evil. Not quite. But, watching. It doesn't like strangers. I stared at her. Then why ask me to come? Because it remembers you. Before I could respond, a loud knock startled us both. She stood and calmly walked to the front door. I followed, curious, but when she opened it, no one was there. No footprints. No wind. Just that fog, thick and unmoving. Back inside, Lena began lighting more candles. Not for decoration, but in a pattern. Circles. Triangles. Lines on the floor, careful and deliberate. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Keeping it calm," she replied. "It gets restless when it senses confusion." I didn't ask who or what it was. Later, I wandered around the cabin. Every room had little artifacts. Small mirrors, strings of bones, locked drawers. But the one that stood out was the red door at the end of the hallway. It had no handle, just a chain looped through thick bolts and a faded carving above it. Lena caught me staring. "Don't go near that room." "Why not?" She turned her head slightly. "Because that's where it waits." I tried to press her, but she wouldn't say more. That night, the whispers returned. Louder this time. More direct. I heard my name, not screamed, not spoken, breathed. I sat up in bed and felt the air around me tighten, like the room itself was holding its breath. From the hallway, I heard the chain on the red door shift. And I swear, I saw a shadow pass across the floor, even though nothing was there. I told myself the chain was just swaying from a draft. That shadows played tricks when you were half awake. But deep down, I knew I was lying. The next morning, Lena was nowhere to be seen. Her cup of tea sat cold on the table, untouched. I called out to her, checked the woods outside, but she had vanished without a trace. I should have left. I even packed my bag. But my curiosity, or maybe something else, kept me rooted. Instead of leaving, I walked to the red door. It wasn't locked anymore. The chain lay coiled at the foot of the door, like a dead snake. The bolts that had once held it tight were now rusted and broken, as if something had pushed from the inside. A sensible man would have walked away. I opened the door. Inside, the room was dark, the air heavier, colder. The walls were painted deep red, not just with color, but with symbols. Spirals, runes, faces with mouths sewn shut. A mirror sat on the far wall, completely covered by a thick black cloth. And in the center of the room was a chair, wooden, splintered, and still stained with something dark. I stepped inside. The door didn't slam behind me, though I expected it to. It remained open, as if inviting me deeper. The closer I got to the mirror, the more I felt, watched. Like I was being measured. Then something strange happened. I saw myself in the covered mirror, not clearly, just a ripple of reflection through the fabric, but my reflection didn't move in sync. It lagged, like a poor signal on an old TV. I turned my head slowly. The image turned after I did. My skin crawled. Suddenly, Lena's voice came from behind me. "You weren't supposed to open that." I turned, startled. She was standing in the hallway, arms crossed tightly, but her face was unreadable, not angry, not afraid. Just resigned. "What is this place?" I asked. She didn't answer directly. "It's a wound," she said. "A place where something broke through." I didn't mean to make it, I didn't even know I was capable of it. But once the door opened, it didn't want to close again. "What is it?" Lena walked into the room, gently touching the black cloth over the mirror. "I think it's me. Or what's left of me. The part one cut out." I didn't understand, not then. Something followed me back from that place. "From the commune," she continued. "It doesn't wear a face. It wears a feeling. It latches onto moments, like pain, longing, fear. I thought I could trap it in here. I glanced again at the mirror. Did it work? She looked at me, finally meeting my eyes. For a while, she said. Until I called you. She stepped forward, whispered, "It remembers you, Evan. And it missed you." After our conversation in the red room, Lena retreated into silence. She cooked dinner in a trance, barely touching her food, eyes fixed on the flickering candle between us. I tried to ask more, to make sense of what was happening, but she just shook her head. "You'll understand soon." That's all she said. Around midnight, unable to rest, I began walking the halls of the cabin. The air had changed, heavy, like the space itself was suffocating. My footsteps echoed louder than they should have, and the shadows lingered just a second too long before retreating. Something wasn't right. Not just with the cabin, with time itself. The clocks had stopped. My phone wouldn't power on. Even the moonlight outside looked dull, like it was filtered through smoke. I found myself drawn to the study, a small room filled with shelves, papers, and an old desk. It smelled like dust and dried lavender. On the corner of the desk sat a scrapbook. I opened it. At first, it seemed like a memory book. Pictures of me and Lena during that long-lost summer. Holding hands by the lake. Laughing in the cabin kitchen. Me sleeping on the couch, shirtless and sunburned. It made me smile, until I realized something. Some of the pictures weren't from our time together. They were from after we broke up. Photos of me walking down the street in my hometown. Me sitting alone in a cafe I didn't recognize. Me asleep in my old apartment, a picture that no one should have been able to take. My hands began to shake. The dates scribbled beneath each photo were recent. Within the past year. I flipped through the pages faster. The photos became stranger. Blurred shots of me through glass. My eyes closed. My mouth slightly open. And always that same angle, like someone watching me from the corner of a room I never saw. The final page was empty, except for a single handwritten line, "You stayed long enough this time." Behind me, I heard the floor creak. I turned, but no one was there. I stormed out of the study, found Lena standing by the fireplace, lighting another circle of candles. "You were watching me," I said, my voice barely controlled. "Why?" She didn't deny it. Her expression softened, almost sorrowful. "I needed to make sure you were still you." "What does that even mean?" She took a step closer, and suddenly she looked very tired. "There's something in this place that can wear faces. Memories. Emotions. It feeds on familiarity. If you weren't really you, if it had gotten to you first, I needed to know." My breath caught. "So all of this, bringing me here, was a test?" "No," she said quietly. "The test already started. You just haven't realized what's real, and what isn't." Then she reached out, touched my chest, and whispered, "You've already been inside the red room before. Don't you remember?" I didn't remember. Not at first. But after Lena's words, a sliver of something cracked inside me, a moment, maybe, or a memory I'd buried so deep it had become something else. I couldn't place it, only feel it. Like déjà vu with sharp edges. "You're not making sense," I said. "You said the red room was sealed. That it hadn't been opened." She nodded slowly. "It was sealed. But that doesn't mean you didn't go in." I didn't understand, and maybe she could tell. She motioned for me to follow her, leading me down a narrow staircase I never knew existed beneath the cabin. A cold, damp scent hit me as we descended into a basement that felt too large, far too large, for the size of the house above. The walls were covered in hanging fabric, pages pinned with nails, strange diagrams of the human body layered with symbols, and a large corkboard filled with notes, my name on several. And in the center was a journal. Bound in leather. Old, but cared for. Lena handed it to me. "This is what they made us keep. Back at the commune. You said you left that place." "I did." But I didn't leave alone. I opened the journal. The first few entries were simple. Meditations. Reflections. Lena writing about wanting peace, trying to detach herself from the past. But as I turned the pages, the tone shifted. The writing became erratic. Like two people were writing in the same book, one calm, one disoriented. Then I saw it, entries written in a different hand. My name scattered throughout. He's still marked. He came too close to the edge. I think I brought part of him back with me. What does this mean? I asked, heart pounding. Lena looked down. They taught us how to separate emotions, to survive by dividing the self. I was told to remove everything weak, love, grief, guilt. The things that held me back. And I did it. I cut them out. But when I did, the empty space didn't stay empty. Something else came in. Something that wears those pieces like clothing. She touched her chest, eyes wet now. I thought I could control it. But I brought it here. I tried to lock it away, to starve it of emotion. But the longer it stayed, the more it learned to mimic. It learned to want. I backed away slightly. Are you saying, it's inside you? She nodded. Part of me, the part that stayed human, is buried under something older. Hungrier. I looked at her, at the woman I once loved. The way her eyes flickered. How her voice sometimes didn't feel like it came from her mouth. How sometimes she looked through me, not at me. Then who am I talking to now? She smiled sadly. That depends on who you are. And whether you were brave enough to come, or just foolish enough to forget you already did. I didn't sleep again. Couldn't. Lena's words echoed in my head, twisting around what I thought was truth. You've already been inside the red room before. I think I brought part of you back with me. I sat on the cabin's porch till dawn, trying to stitch my memories together. Something wasn't aligning. There were gaps, days, maybe weeks of my past that felt foggy, unaccounted for. I always blamed it on stress, on heartbreak. But what if it was something else? What if I had been here before? When the sun finally rose, I went back into the house. Lena was gone again. The basement door wide open. I didn't follow. I had a different destination in mind now. The red room. The air pulsed as I stepped inside. Like the room had been waiting. The mirror still sat on the far wall, covered by that thick black cloth. The chair still in the center. But something had changed. The room smelled different, like copper, like rain on hot stone, like fear left in a jar. I stood in front of the mirror, heart hammering. I reached for the cloth. And then I stopped. I don't know why. Some primal instinct, deeper than logic, told me not to. But the mirror pulsed, almost called to me. I was shaking as I pulled the cloth away. At first, I saw only myself. Just a reflection. But then my image smiled, and I hadn't. I froze. My reflection tilted its head. I did not. I stepped back, and it stayed in place. And then it spoke. You really came back. Its voice was my voice, but too smooth, too deliberate. Like a memory rehearsing itself. I backed away, but the door had closed. I hadn't heard it. You're not me, I said. The thing in the mirror laughed. That's what you said last time. Then it began to show me things, not words, not images, feelings. Pain. Desperation. That summer I met Lena. The moment she told me she was leaving. The fights. The day she vanished. But then it went further, to a night I didn't remember. The mirror pulsed again, and I saw myself, standing outside the cabin in the rain, pounding on the red door. Lena's voice, pleading. My own voice, screaming. Let me in. I can fix it. And then, silence. The door opened. I walked inside. And something else walked out. I stumbled back, eyes wide. The reflection grinned, but this time, it wasn't my face at all. You left part of yourself behind, it whispered. And I've grown fond of it. The door behind me opened with a groan. Lena stood there, her face pale. You remembered, she said. I was here before, I breathed. I never left. She nodded. You left your fear. Your love. Your guilt. And it's been feeding off you ever since. Every time you dreamed of me, every time you missed me, you were really feeding it. Tears welled in my eyes. I don't know who I am anymore. Lena stepped forward, her voice almost kind now. Then we'll find out together. But only if you're still brave enough to stay. The cabin no longer felt like a house. It felt like a living thing, breathing in the corners, watching through the knots in the wooden walls. The red room didn't want me to leave. I could feel it. Lena led me back down into the basement, but this time she didn't stop at the bottom of the stairs. She walked to the far wall, to a panel hidden behind shelves of old books and rusted tools, and pulled it open. Behind it was a narrow passage, damp and earthen, descending into the soil. The walls were carved with symbols, not written, etched, clawed into the dirt. The deeper we went, the more I heard something low and distant, like a hum or a chant echoing through waterlogged stone. We reached a chamber. Rough, circular. No light, except for Lena's lantern. And there, in the center of the room, was a second mirror, older, cracked, and fused to the ground by roots that had grown up around its frame like veins around a heart. What is this place? I whispered. It's the beginning, Lena said. Where the ritual first happened. Where I broke myself open. And where you followed me. Flashes came then, not images, but feelings slamming into me. The fear of losing her. The desperate choice to come find her. The moment I crossed a threshold I couldn't remember, a threshold I had been warned not to cross. You said I left something behind, I said. You said it's feeding on me. Lena nodded. The version of you that came in was desperate to fix what couldn't be fixed. It gave everything, memory, reason, identity, to the mirror. She stepped toward the old glass. And now, it wants the rest of you. The mirror shimmered. Something moved behind it. Not a reflection. A shape. A version of me, but gaunt. Pale. Eyes hollow. Mouth too wide. It mimicked my stance. Then it blinked first. What is that? I asked. It's the you that stayed, Lena said quietly. The you that's been trying to come back. But the mirror doesn't let go. It collects. And it's learned how to blur the lines. The air thickened, and the mirror self reached out, and this time, the glass flexed. Like the barrier between us was softening. You can't kill it, Lena said. You can't fight it. You have to reclaim what you gave away. She pulled a small blade from her coat, old, ceremonial, covered in waxy stains. You have to remember the pain. All of it. The loss. The betrayal. The guilt. And take it back. The mirror self smiled now, mocking. It raised its arms, as if to invite me. You do this, Lena said, or it takes your place. Again. My knees buckled. My heart was a drum in my ears. You said it missed me, I whispered. Why? Lena's eyes shone with sorrow. Because you're the last piece it needs to become real. I stood before the ancient mirror, staring at the reflection that wasn't mine, and yet was everything I had once been. Twisted by desperation. Hollowed by loss. The version of me that had made a terrible bargain without understanding the cost. The reflection grinned again. This time, its mouth tore wider than any human's should. It was time. Lena placed the ceremonial blade in my trembling hands. It's not the blade that matters, she whispered. It's the memory. I looked at her. What happens if I fail? She didn't answer. Instead, she stepped back, eyes full of regret, and something else. Hope, maybe. I turned back to the mirror. My reflection moved again, mimicking my motions, but out of sync. Like a puppet trying to recall how it once walked. I raised the blade and, for a moment, the image glitched. My face split, one version twisted, the other haunted. I don't want this, I muttered. I didn't choose this. But I had. Somewhere, long ago, in grief and madness and love too strong to let go, I had chosen. I closed my eyes and let the memories return. The night I stood outside this cabin, soaked in rain, begging Lena to open the door. The scream I let out when she finally did, only to find her eyes wrong, her smile broken. The moment I stepped through the red door, thinking I could save her. The pain that followed, splitting, burning, tearing something from my soul I couldn't name. Tears streamed down my face as the mirror pulsed. The reflection screamed, a sound that wasn't sound at all, but grief made manifest. Its arms burst into branching veins of shadow, lashing the edges of the glass. The room shook. I gripped the blade harder and did what Lena told me. I remembered the pain, and I claimed it. I spoke aloud the name I had buried, Evan Michaels. I said it over and over, even as the mirror tried to twist it into something else. I said it until my voice cracked. I am Evan. I remember. I am whole. The mirror buckled. The reflection writhed. It reached toward me, one last time, but this time, it was afraid. With a cry, I plunged the blade into my palm, not to harm myself, but to mark the truth in blood. My blood. The price I had paid. Light burst from the mirror. A scream tore through the chamber. My reflection shattered, piece by piece, until nothing remained but a dull pane of black glass. Silence. I collapsed, panting, my hand bleeding. The mirror was just a mirror again. Lena rushed to my side. Her arms were warm. Real. You did it, she whispered. You took yourself back. I looked at her, my vision blurry. Will it stay gone? She didn't answer right away. Not forever, she said. But now, you'll know it when it comes back. We stood together in the dim light, surrounded by echoes and broken things. She looked at me with a tired smile. I told you, if you're brave enough, stay. You did. You stayed. And for the first time, I finally understood what she meant. The end.